All right, so the thing that we're going to be talking about here today is just generally leading in the age of AI. There's a lot of fear and there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of things going on within organizations that are out there. So we want to make sure that by the end of this webinar, you have some tools and things like that you can take back to your organizations, whether or not you're leading one, whether or not you're a part of one, and different things that you can kind of look at AI hopefully in a different lens. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, I've been at this for roughly 25 years in different capacities. I also serve as a VCSO on top of all of that for multiple organizations all over the country, and they serve millions of people. So we've got a lot of different opportunities here, especially in the world of cyber, that's important. A couple of things that are unique just about myself in general is I don't just talk about AI necessarily. We actually go through and implement them. So these are some of the things that I've done. I've built and deployed fully customized solutions, and they're running in production right now globally. They're not demos, they're not pilots. They're being actively deployed in organizations and used all over the world. I've done about 100 or so, maybe a little over, lose track, improvement projects and digital transformations all over the place. Two things I consider myself a leader and a doer. And then as I think I have some of my team members on here, they'll tell you I work with them in the trenches and help them get through some of the more tougher challenges that are out there. So that's one of the reasons why I want to kind of bring this expertise to you today, both as a leader and somebody that's been down on the ground floor working on implementations of artificial intelligence and digital transformation in organizations. I find a lot of this hopefully will be useful to you. Everyone's been asking what AI will do to their business, and it's obviously there's a lot. There's a lot of things that AI will do to it. The big thing that I want to talk about is what is it doing to your people. I want everyone to kind of understand this fact. Everyone is a leader in some case. You may not be a business owner or a CEO or a COO, CISO or anything like that. You may be a mother or a father, a son, a daughter. You're leading your friends, colleagues, employees. If you have a cat or a dog, they rely on you to make sure that they're fed. So everyone in this room, regardless of what your status is inside of an organization, is a leader of some kind. So as we kind of go through this talk, I want you all to keep that in mind, that every single person here is a leader in some aspect. Now, given the audience that's in the room here, we're all essentially technologists, at least in some part. We have a tendency to be forward-focused on product or our customers, but when you look in the news, social media, there is a massive fear about layoffs. There's a massive fear about what AI is going to do inside of the organization. So my question to you as we go through this webinar today is, what is it doing to our people? Your people, your employees, your colleagues, your friends, your family, and how can we increase awareness around what AI is doing inside of these organizations? AI is everywhere. I'm doing 3 talks this week on it. I did one yesterday on a podcast. I have this one. I have another one tomorrow, and there are 3 different topics, but all around different portions of AI. So everyone knows. If you've been to a conference, if you've been to different things, we've all walked through a room. It's AI everywhere. If we work, the vast majority of people work in cyber, or maybe a cyber adjacent, or work for an organization that works in cyber, or maybe you're just interested in cyber as a student, or something like that. But everywhere you go, if you look at one of these tools, it's AI this, AI that, AI this, AI that. And sometimes there's a lot of hype that gets thrown around some of that. And we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk a little bit about what that hype looks like inside of an organization. The next time you're in a room talking about AI, think about who's in that room and whether or not they've actually used AI and or implemented themselves. And you're going to find out throughout the course of this what that actually looks like. So one of the things that's going on inside of TikTok or social media, our video content creator here at Morevolved, we were talking about this last week, is we were talking about the chainsaw and how the chainsaw didn't replace the lumberjack. I guess this is going around on on the internet. So the chainsaw didn't replace the lumberjack. We have accepted that fact. But what it did replace is the one who wouldn't pick it up. So I get asked all the time, is AI going to replace me? And if I'm answering honestly, like as we should, the answer could be without a doubt. There are certain jobs that would be replaced by AI, but knowledge in that fact is not a cause for being upset. You know it's coming. So the question is, what are you going to do about it? Here's what I do know. We were looking at an article last week about Ford. Ford laid off 350 of its QA engineers at one of its plants. Publicly, they were replacing it by AI. Guess what ended up happening? They ended up getting hired back. Klarna, for those of you who aren't aware, Klarna was one of the first very public failures of where AI got implemented into an organization where they took, I think it was 700 plus customer service representatives, and then they replaced them using AI, and they ended up having to hire most of them back as well because AI is serving a particular purpose, and that's not the purpose that it was designed for. McDonald's, if y'all watch the news, McDonald's is another example of a public AI failure where they did like automated burgers and those types of things. And if you look through the history of different things, there's a lot of implementations that fail in the world of AI. Last August, MIT released a study that 95% of AI pilots fail. So here's what is doing well when it comes to AI. It's about human augmentation, utilizing artificial intelligence. I have another talk that dives deep into that phenomenon just in general, but it's how AI is used with people augments their ability in the same way that the chainsaw actually augmented a lumberjack. So kind of going back to that chainsaw example, there are people that, they were fearful that they were going to lose their jobs as a result of the chainsaw coming out for the lumberjack. And obviously we're in 2026 where a lot of logging and stuff like that is automated, so we're at a different level of that. But when it first arrived, it was the same kind of thing. The difference is, if you look at AI as a tool and not as the replacement, the person that the chainsaw didn't replace the lumberjack. It moved how fast they could actually move up how many trees they could chop down. So 10 times or 100 times or whatever it ended up being is what that ended up. The only people it actually did replace was the people who crossed their arms and refused to pick it up. So I know in every organization we probably have some more of those folks that don't necessarily want to be a part of AI. So I'm going to pause there for questions real quick and see if we have any.
Stace, this is Tall Guy. Actually, I was going to put it on comment, but I just stopped driving. I have a question, actually. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So the example you're giving, while I agree, I think this aspect of, even with the chainsaw, there's that dependency, right? You need the body.
You need the human, yes.
Yeah, you need the person to use it. While with the current landscape, there's the potential that the AI doesn't need you, kind of.
And we're going to get into that in just a second. And you're right, there is a possibility of that, depending on the job that you're doing. So we'll get into all of that. But that's a good question here in the next couple of slides. The point of the chainsaw is to kind of frame tool versus person. Also kind of going back to the actual failure rate of AI as it gets implemented into organizations. One of the things that we want to talk about from a leadership perspective is the instinct versus the job. The thing about this is, and we were talking about this inside of our organization yesterday, there are going to be certain jobs that people just want people to be able to do. I mean, that's just going to be part of it. Everyone kind of talks about going down the AI path. AI can improve absolutely everything, but there will be jobs that people just want to have people to do. And we'll, as we continue down this AI path, those jobs will become more and more relevant as to what humans should do and what AI can do, and then kind of reversing that. We can't predict the future, right? So I like Tolgai's kind of concept when it comes to that. We can't predict the future when it comes to leading. So me personally, I'm a fixer by nature, and I'm also somewhat of an empath. I have some of my Morevolved team on this webinar, and they can kind of attest to that. My instinct is generally to fix the problem when it comes to fear in an organization and when you're trying to lead people through these potential changes. However, fixing the problem may or may not be always the answer when it comes to that. And the thing about it is we don't know what the change is, what AI is going to be able to do 5 years from now. So dealing with fear in the organization is sometimes about being empathetic and taking the time to listen to what is bothering your teams, because as it was just mentioned, there's obviously a stigma that's going around even right now of what the AI may or may not take a part of your job. We have to be able to offer people the opportunities to learn inside of organizations and then grow together. In our business, we call it optimize and systemize, how we can improve a user's or a person's output based off of what AI does for them. Like I said before, there are certain aspects of a job that are going to be replaced as a part of what they're doing. Entire jobs will be replaced, but that doesn't preclude people from being able to move into the jobs that are fully augmented by artificial intelligence. So one of the kind of the instances that we see there, and this is probably one of the biggest things that drive this fear, goes down into an organization like Facebook, where you can look on social media and whether or not, and I'm not for or against or anything like that, but if you look on what people are saying about it, Facebook is, they're laying off people, or Amazon, the FANG, the big giants are laying off people because they're stating that AI is working for them, and it is in certain aspects. But if you go all the way down to Amazon is in their own letters are saying we have to start hiring people back, the ones that we let go, because they weren't able to actually replace them using AI. The other part of that is, if you look on social media as well, there's a lot of talk around training people out of their own jobs. So, in these larger tech companies, they go through and they help train the AIs and then they fire them. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world of AI, and people are getting hired back as a result of realizing that there is a line in the sand that needs to be adhered to between what humans should do and what AI should do. The biggest point when I come to this is more of going down to not letting them carry that alone. Don't be if you're a leader inside of an organization, address that in the room, like bring it up. Fear tends to grow in ambiguity. So this is one thing that you can actually have a conversation with the people that are actually in the rooms deploying AI. So here's an interesting fact, right? Most people look at AI having come out in November of 2022. So AI is, like I have on the slide here, AI is a monster. But what most people don't realize is, back in 1943, there was a seed planted about AI. 1950, Alan Turing's question. 1956 is the birth of the AI field. And then anyone that's been using any one of these, Google, Amazon, those types of things, have been using AI for quite a long time. So I asked them, I'm like, when did you start using Google? They'd be like, early 2000s, when the internet, for some of the folks that are younger, when the internet was, dawning, the dot-coms of, the late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of that stuff had the onset of what we consider to be AI in a way. Well, now we've come into different versions of AI. So when you're going and having these conversations with your folks, remind them that AI has actually been around for a while. And yeah, everyone's going towards AGI, everyone's going towards superintelligence and those things. But you have to start giving it more of less of a vague construct than AI is going to take your job. Well, what exactly is it? Well, you've got predictive AI, you've got generative AI, you've got agentic AI, and then, you've got AGI. So the point here is, when people are vague about AI, it generates more and more fear. People tend to fear what they don't understand. So name it and make it smaller. Make it people aware that AI has been around for a while. Yeah, we're still navigating a whole ton of problems with that on a global level. There's a lot of people that are developing inside of controls, outside of controls, depending on your point of view. And there is room for fear to be in there, but your fear tends to diminish. People ask me if I'm afraid, and I'm like, I'm not really in certain aspects. I've worked in consulting, I've worked on technology, I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked in places, and things all over the place, and I'm not necessarily fearful of AI because I've learned to use AI as a tool and made it an extension rather than being worried that it's going to replace certain aspects of my job. Do I use it? Do we use it to write emails now? Most people do. They'll hop in ChatGPT. They'll rewrite an email. They'll do different things. And what your people are beginning to discover throughout that is, this whole concept of AI slop. Even though AI is taking certain aspects of it, it's also the very first thing that some of the Gen Z and millennials that are out there, they're like, well, this is AI and I'm not even going to pay attention to it. So how much of our jobs are at risk when that is the mentality of the future generation? Here's the thing. If you look online and you start actually peeling back the layers of some of these tools, you realize that it's basically a lot of the same tools. I mean, there's some out there that are actually doing model building. We do it here at Morevolved in very isolated use cases for our clients, depending on what they need. But you'll realize that it's a cleverly wrapped prompt inside of a user interface, and they're calling that, AI, essentially. So one of the things that if they, people are like, oh, they're going to take my job, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. There's a tool out there that's doing it. It's basically the same tool. It's Claude, it's ChatGPT, it's Grok, it's DeepSeek, it's these other models that are out there that people go through and then start the process of building a UI around it, and then they use AI to actually build that UI around it. One of the things that we do is we actually give people the ability, we show them how that works. We show them how simple it is to go through and build something using AI to be able to go and do that. Now, there's a lot of security implications, and we have those discussions in depth when it comes to that. But when you start looking at this, even like some of these billion-dollar companies that have come out, they've basically taken a chain of, look at Perplexity or a couple of these other ones. They've taken a chain of different models, and then they wrote some software that could then go in and pull data from the other models to create something, what they call what is new, but it's still coming from the same sources. And then you run into the issue when a model gets updated, that stuff breaks. So I like to go through and actually like to teach people how that part works. So they become a little bit less afraid of, AI is changing everything. And it is in certain aspects. I mean, I've used Fable 5 and some of the other tools that are out there. So continuing down the path of, okay, so this is what AI really feels like, at least in the moment. This is what people are building with it. Now, when you start getting into some of the other organizations that are actually building models, then that starts to become a different story. And that's worthy of a much deeper discussion. One of the best examples I like of this is Lovable. Most people have used Lovable, at least at some point in time. I probably started using it maybe a year ago. If you have used it, you've gone through and you've tried to get AI to actually do something, or you've tried to get it to build you a website or an app or something like that. And what you end up doing is you end up having conversations with, Claude or ChatGPT. It depends on the API of the day. I think it's Claude now that they're using. I haven't used it in a few months, but going through and having those conversations, and it's very difficult to get AI to actually do the thing that you're trying to imagine it to do. There's a lot of prompt engineering. You can go on YouTube, and there's thousands and thousands, I wouldn't even say thousands, probably millions of videos at this point. People that have the best way to be able to go and do this, but if you're still asking to move something simple, or create something simple, or move a banner, or have it do something using Lovable, it gets to be pretty difficult. And there's another multi-$100 million company of is still a wrapper around some of those things. So it's just more there's a lot of examples I could use on that. And like I said, we still use Lovable. It's good software, but we use that kind of as a starting point rather than a finishing point. Teach your teams on how to do some of this stuff. If you really want them to succeed, give them the opportunity and the leg room to be able to go through and shape how they want to define their job. The skills of the future are going to be more of the folks that can use and integrate and augment AI, their jobs, than the ones that kind of continue to do things the way that they've been doing it all along. So that's one way that you can go through and help your organizations, give them that opportunity to be able to look through that, pull back the veil, so to speak, of some of these tools that are out there, even the big ones, these tools that are out there, and see what they've become, or maybe entertain them with a way that they could maybe build something themselves, something super simple. The other half of the job is managing the fear. And how you do this is you show them what they could become if they became augmented by AI. So one of the things that I like to say all the time is there's a difference between being efficient and effective. I don't think this is in my bio. I'm a Lean Six Sigma black belt, so I love the word efficient just in general. They're not the same thing. You really need both. You can be effective at something without being efficient, and vice versa. And when having this conversation with the people that you lead, there are some different examples that I just kind of picked out of the random. There's probably 10 million of them, but I picked 6. And this is stuff that kind of being done with AI already. You're an EA, maybe scheduling a meeting across 10 different calendars. I know I have a lot of calendars that I use. AI finds a slot that works for everyone in seconds instead of a back and forth email chain. And then the person still decides what the meeting is for and who really needs to be there. You can have AI do this, but once again, the vast majority of even our clients, they would much rather, when we did this, and there's a reason why I'm saying this, in the past, one of our software platforms that we developed, we actually put AI agents into the room. This was 9 months ago, maybe 10 months ago at this point. We put AI agents into the room where they were having conversations with their clients, but the questions that were being asked were valid, but it was just a little bit slower on the slow side. So they actually asked us to, as cool as it was to have a conversation with AI, they just wanted to talk to a person instead. And I think we've all kind of experienced that just from over the last couple of years, getting on a phone, trying to get a hold of somebody, and you're talking to an agent, and the agent can help. But at some point in time, you want to have that human connection. So anywhere that there is an opportunity for a human connection, those are different things that AI can augment, and then you give it back over to the human then has that conversation with people. I think everyone's done this at least at some point in time, teaching people when they're facing a blank email, like, what do you want to send? Writer's cramp, writer's block, whatever it is. These are different opportunities that you have that you can do that. Customer service rep on a hard call. There might be an opportunity there where AI is actually, and this is all stuff that's being implemented in the wild. You still need that human connection from a customer service rep. Look at Klarna. Klarna is the perfect example of how AI customer service failed horribly. But having, and this is one of the solutions that we've designed, having AI go through and pull up a customer information available to that person to be able to give there, and then they keep that human level of warmth because that's what they need. And I've been to Con, and I've been to different AI conferences, and I was at this one in Con, and AI is getting to the point where it can read, and this was February of 25, so this has been a while. But at that point in time, AI was getting to the point that it could actually read voices, inflections, and make that attempt to be able to go through and feel human, but most people know when it's not, at least at this point. So a couple of other use cases, a salesperson prepping for a call, even prepping for a webinar, being able to kind of go through and have a conversation back and forth with an AI, see where you need to improve, remove it, and then switching it over to having that conversation with the human. One of the last things that we kind of talk about is just that learn to vibe code. Whether or not that's right or wrong, indifferent. I know there's probably some developers in the room that would argue for and or against that. It's just going to be part of the process as we're moving forward. Part of the things that are going to be built are going to be vibe coded as AI continues to raise that bar as to how well it is inside of there. All right, so I'm going to pause there before I get into the last section.
Actually, perfect timing. We do have a question here. Great. The question actually relates to what you were just speaking about. So, what about vibe coding? Is this a threat for the junior programmers? Zeta asks.
That is an excellent question, and it depends on how you look at it, right? So, junior programmer, it could be a threat, and like I said, keeping it honest, keeping it real. But the more you learn how to vibe code and the more you learn how to implement some of this stuff, the better off you're going to be. And the thing that I talk about a lot, and I talk about this all over the place, is AI, at least not presently. I mean, we still got a ways to go. AI is not going to replace the need for critical thinking. And I do believe that is, something that as the world becomes more automated, that part is going to be the kind of the Achilles heel of humanity in general. If you look back to all of the studies that are coming out right now about social media and how it's reduced the abilities people to be able to think on their own, AI is going to do the same thing, and that's where vibe coding comes in. But if you maintain the ability to be able to deploy AI into certain aspects where you're actually doing the problem-solving portion of AI, then you go in and you use the AI systems to code the platform that you want to be able to code. And we've all done this. I've vibe coded things, and AI gets it wrong. It gets it wrong. I wouldn't say it gets it wrong quite a bit. So you may go through and you need to be able to ascertain what is wrong versus what is right, and that's where the critical thinking aspect comes in it, because otherwise AI will just get deployed and it'll do whatever it wants. So as a human, our job is to more figure out what that pathway forward looks like. So as a junior developer, that is the skill set that you need to have and that you need to hone while vibe coding becomes more and more of a thing. People, we've seen it. People are building apps left and right. And a lot of them are collapsing on themselves, and some of them are really good. Just kind of depends on whether or not the person that's behind that keyboard that's actually doing the vibe coding understands the mechanics of how to build an application.
Thank you. And we have two more.
Great.
Yeshwani says, I agree AI can't do critical and emotional thinking. Can AI do embedded coding?
Yes. Fortunately and unfortunately, depending on how you look at it. And the answer is yes. We have actually developed that in our own systems that can do embedded coding. We have it gated to certain aspects, but yes, it can do that.
Okay, thank you. We actually have two more. So Juan asks, so a lot of what you've been talking about is how individuals can incorporate AI into their own workflows, which is great and I agree with. I'm curious what you're seeing more broadly around AI being integrated across the business, not just at the individual productivity level. Are there examples you've seen where companies are using AI in a more systematic way that is driving real business impact across the organization?
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that we do. Obviously, RAG is probably one of the biggest ones, depending on how well RAG gets implemented, allowing you to be able to search through all of your different files, whether that's a multimodal or not. Multimodal for the non-tech folks in the room means that you have the ability to search through text, image, video, different types of media that gets implemented. And then from there, using other opportunities that we see and that we've actually done is implementing forecasting and those things. It's a great question. I think I'm going to cover a little bit deeper into that here in the next, I think it might be the next slide. But yeah, there are many, many different instances where putting data at the fingertips of an organization is the key for being able to do that. And there are, those are a couple of very small instances where AI has been implemented into organizations that show that. Now, there are other organizations, and I'm sure everyone's seen this, where you get online and you're talking with a chat bot or something like that that doesn't surface the right information, and it's just AI set up at that point to be able to do that. But ultimately, it comes down to your systems. If you don't understand how your process works, and a lot of organizations, believe it or not, don't, because processes are changed over time. They're changed by people. They're changed by human hands, and then they get implemented, and then they get changed again, and then they're not documented. So when we start looking at, this is one of the reasons why AI fails in general. If you start implementing a process that's not fully documented, you throw that into AI and you try to automate whatever process that is, it's going to fail because you don't actually have the information that created that process to make it work inside of the organization to begin with. So what businesses are doing is they're uploading standard operating procedures that they've had, they've had their management team somewhere or some consultant that came in and said, this is the way that you operate. And having worked on the ground floor, and I'm sure there's quite a few people in here, when a consultant comes in and they start having these conversations, they're not getting the whole picture of what's going on. So then you go in and implement that into an organization, and then it flops. So ultimately, if you're looking to do some sort of AI implementation at the organizational level, you need to understand how your organization operates first, whether or not that's at the departmental level, maybe it's a shop level, and maybe it's a organizational C-suite level. Like I said, the vast majority of organizations have a lot of slop, silos, things like that are built in, and inherently, almost every SOP that has ever been built has not been built for automation.
So Izita asks, can AI get so expensive that the benefits from it will be exceeded by the cost?
That is a very, very good question. And once again, I'm going to caveat this with an opinion. This is grounded in a little bit of fact, but this is also my opinion as we kind of continue to grow inside of this. There are two things that, if you look at history, right, and you look at things that you can learn over time, AI itself we're going to hit like an inflection point. I do believe it's going to continue to crawl upward in terms of cost, at least in the interim, at least for now. There are studies out there, take that with a grain of salt when I say studies, right? So you got a few researchers in a room based off of limited information that is available over the course of like the last 3 to 5 years. They're making inferences off of this information to give this. But there are studies out there that believe that AI will eventually become commoditized, similar to the internet. Whether or not that's true or not true, I think that remains to be seen, but I do believe that there's a certain aspect of it that will eventually move towards that direction. And the reason for that, from my perspective and based on the research that I have done, is that AI itself, the intelligence levels, as we continue to grow in intelligence, we are going to learn how to create more efficient versions of AI. NVIDIA and some of the other big companies have already been kind of moving towards this thing. Look at data centers, look at efficiencies and things like that. There's a possibility that as we get more data, and I shouldn't say more data because we have a lot of data, but as we get more data on this particular information, how people are using AI, we'll be able to then use AI to then improve all of the different systems that actually run AI. So I think in the interim, yes, it'll probably get more expensive. I know Fable 5, they gave us all an extra week to be able to use it under our different plans that we have, and I know that's going behind API later on. I know GPT 5.6 is supposed to release today or yesterday or sometime in the next couple of weeks from the larger frontier models. The other thing that I think that's going to eventually happen is we're going to start seeing some other models that are going to come out, and you're going to see more specific use cases. Because in our particular case, when we start building models or retraining models, open weight models, things like that for clients, it gets more specific. Do we need a 1.5 trillion parameter model for everything to be able to run AI systems? The answer is no, we don't. We don't need to know the tuning side of a 1965 Corvette engine that the frontier models tend to know. So now you get down into these smaller models that are maybe 30 billion parameters, 7 billion parameters, depending, that are very, very highly tuned, that can then run on devices like your phone. So there's a curve, and with all of the different things that are going on in the world of AI, you're fighting these big tech companies. I wouldn't say fighting. The big tech companies have their own way of doing it, and then you've got everybody else that's doing other thing. And I think the last point I want to make on that is think of Linux, right? So Linux itself, for everyone, most of the folks in here probably know what that is. Linux was released free, right? And what is it? 85%. Never do math in public, but 85% of servers are run off of Linux. Yeah, we've got Red Hat, and there's different versions that you have to pay for now that are there. But the idea of Bash and all of the things that came out of that are ultimately free. So depending on how this ends up shaping, there's a long way to go with that. But I think initially, we'll probably see an increase in cost because we still haven't figured out a way to be efficient at it yet.
Hanson asks, will you have deeper AI talks around RAG, A2A, orchestration spanning across control planes, including the value of 3P enterprise AI self-assessments?
I'm not making a plug for us, but we're launching an institute here in a few weeks where we go into both more of the leadership side, and then we're going to go into some of the more technical side for organizations that want to be able to implement these things into their organizations. So, and we're looking at it through both lenses. We have a lot of technical folks here. I am actually a nerd myself, so I love getting into the nitty gritty. So the more and more, I want to be able to teach more and more about this. So the answer to your question is yes.
And Michael asks, I'm not a coder, but I am a security professional. I worry that if I have AI vibe code something for me, it won't be smart enough to make sure the code it writes for me is secure. Any suggestions on how to work with that tension?
So there's a couple different ways that you can do that. You can spin up an agent if you want to that actually looks through that lens, because general vibe coding, right? You look at it through you have like an orchestration engine that runs. So call it Claude Code, call it Cursor, call it whatever version that you want to be able to call it. But you can actually ask, being a security professional, you actually know what needs to be done. So whether it's maybe you're doing SOC 2 controls, maybe you're doing an 800/171, maybe you're doing a few different things that you want to do. You can spin up an agent that sole purpose is to go against the grain on the coding platform itself. The second thing is, and this is what I've done, is I'm part of Anthropic's cyber verification program. And if you have credentials and you're credentialed in the background, you can just apply for this program over at Anthropic, and it will unlock some of the ability to be able to basically pen test your own software. So it removes some of the restrictions that are on there to be able to go through and do that. Now you can't do it publicly. There's a set of rules, and it's very very strict on the rules that you can follow. But those are a couple different methods that you can kind of go through and do both of those things. Is it going to be perfect? The answer is no. And the reason why it should and shouldn't be concerning is everyone has heard of Mythos. Everyone has heard what, at least on this call, I'm assuming, and what that has done to software that we feel has been secure for 30, 40 years. If you believe what you've read in the news, where Mythos went through and cracked part of the NSA's and the CIA's classified networks, like, the fact of the matter is, like, we as humans, we have introduced our own mistakes into coding by itself. AI can then also introduce those mistakes, but it's done at AI scale. So what you have to decide when you're vibe coding, what level of guardrails do you want to be able to put through that? Do you want it being able to be put through that initially, not initially? And I don't want to get into the super technical details here. We can do that on another call, or you can email me and I'll be happy to help you. You can do this through the Claude.md file in Claude Code if you were looking at using Claude Code to be do that. And then before it even starts coding, you set all of the parameters of what you want it to do ahead of time. So yeah, there's a lot of folks that don't understand secure coding. There's a lot of folks that don't understand the control matrices that are required to be SOC 2 or FedRAMP or anything like that. And I'm not saying that's where you're going with that by any means, but the information is in fact out there. And if it's not, you can even go to the NIST website, grab the PDF, upload it into your prompt and say, follow this as a structure for every piece of code that you write, and then have it output what information that you want it to be able to do. If you're going for SOC 2 and you need that auditability, for example, you can have it go through and do that. So once again, going back to the second question that was asked about, is it going to affect junior developers? The answer is yes, but once you get to the point that you know what it is that you want to do, AI is never going to, I shouldn't say never. AI right now in its present state, you have to tell it what you want it to do. Yeah, Fable 5 is great, and it can one-shot a lot of cool things, but it's still not able to build a massive enterprise thing with all the different security controls that are available to that. And I know we're getting close on time, so hopefully that answers that question. You have the decision making. If you have a further question, feel free to email me after this. I think ISACA has my email address, and I'd be more than happy to just kind of walk through that with you too. Okay, so I'm gonna try and get all of this, land this plane here in the next couple of minutes. So what AI is doing is it's really raising the floor. Your job is as a leader, is to give people the ladder to get up. There are all like when you start talking about AI, there's all kinds of things. You got artificial narrow intelligence, you've got artificial general intelligence, you got artificial super intelligence, reactive machines, we've got limited memory, theory of mind, self-aware. These are all different functions that AI does. We've got supervised learning, unsupervised learning, semi-supervised learning, self-supervised learning, reinforcement learning, transfer learning, few shot and zero shot learning. So these are different ways that AI learns. And then breaking it down into machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, convolutional neural networks, recurrent, transformers. All of these lead into other things that AI could be able to do. And a lot of, like I said, I have to laugh sometimes. And in one of my other talks, I talk about how we use AI to, the vast majority of people out there right now presently use AI to, fix an email or, have it make a silly cat video that's 6 seconds long and fill up Instagram or those things. But in all actuality, like the ability for what AI can do in its present state is absolutely astronomical. And you as a leader should, these are the conversations that you should have with people. Basically what it is right now is, we've been talking about natural language processing, so ChatGPT, Claude, those things, computer vision, interpreting images, video, facial recognition, self-driving, medical imaging, manufacturing, quality inspection. These are all things that you start to get outside of this whole ChatGPT type thing. But you can also use some of these AI tools to help develop some of this stuff. Speech and audio AI. I mean, look at what is it? I haven't actually had the chance of using them yet, but the AirPod 3s now have the ability to translate inside of your ear. While you're walking down the street. There's another version of AI. Robotics, machine perception and sensor fusion, knowledge representation. There's RAG and reasoning, planning and optimization, recommendation systems, building things that can go through and make recommendations to people and you, things like that. And then we talked a little bit about how it's packaged: generative AI, predictive AI, conversational AI, multimodal AI, agentic AI, and then we've talked a little bit about the foundation models or the frontier models. So as you can see, there's a ton of different things that are out there, and you as a leader should like understand a few of these, and then put your team around it. Whoever's on your team, like go and say, hey, AI could probably do this. Let's go and figure this out, and let's work on it together. Use the leverage. Like you can get on YouTube if you want to, but I've watched. I'm sure there's the bowels of YouTube and there, but a lot of people talk about building tools, and I see some of these biggest influencers are building video games, but you all are in here in this room trying to figure out the best way to go forward. And there's I just went over a few different things, and you'll be able to get my slide and all my notes too of everything that's in here, and I have all the information in the notes as well. You have to decide whether or not your organization is going to press forward on some of this stuff that we're doing, and whether or not it's going to be safe or not. What do you want people to have access to? What are you going to let people build? Are they, I wouldn't let people put their raw data inside of a Claude code or anything like that, but there's different ways that we can go through and upskill. Upskilling is the way that you're going to get through this for the people in your organization. So what you owe them as a leader is you owe them the chainsaw, the time, and the truth. But you can't make them do any of this stuff. So one of the things that shouldn't surprise anyone in this room is not everyone will adopt. And adoption is never uniform. So if you're in any room, you've got a small group of enthusiasts. I feel like this is probably that group of enthusiasts already running it. So they're already doing stuff in AI. You have a large middle that's watching and waiting. Maybe they're dabbling in ChatGPT regular or something like that. Waiting and waiting for you to make the decision as to whether or not you're really going to bring people aboard and help them through it. And you got a group at the back with their arms crossed. And so much of I feel like our AI marketing and the things like that are all focused at these enthusiasts, when you got the vast majority of the people that are still kind of skeptical, asking the right questions like you all have been asking me. There are overwhelmed people that they're not against AI, and they're not against doing the right thing. They're just overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. They don't know which direction to go. They just don't know where to start. And like all things when it comes to leadership is you shrink it, you make it small. Give them tangible tasks that they can do using AI to be able to then go and implement it. The goal here is to make it to where people didn't get replaced by AI, because like we said in the very beginning, that is in fact a possibility. But how do we turn it into a tool that we're like the chainsaw that goes into somebody's hands before it becomes the automated rig that goes and cuts down the forest in one swipe? I know we put the questions kind of in the middle there, so I'm going to just breeze through just the slides here. There's some stuff in my notes that we can kind of go through. So you don't owe them the chainsaw, you owe them the time and the truth. In my notes, I talk a little bit about what the failure rates look like. You'll have people that resist it hard. Do what works. Don't think that AI has changed some of the things. We talk about it in cyber all the time too. How do you secure an AI system? Well, it's still data ultimately. It's like for the first time ever, we decided it was okay to give some random computer our passwords and thought that was fine. I think of API keys when I see people that are like, oh, I put an API key into a system, and now it's available for retraining later on down the road. You don't lead people through fear. You lead them with answers and presence. Be honest about the uncertainty, work with them, be with them throughout all the process. I have some examples in here. Don't create a mandate because it's compliance, not adoption. Figure out different ways that'll work for the organization. You're going to have some non-adopters inside of your organization, so that's just going to be unfortunate, at least at that point in time. Just keeping it real. Work with them, try and figure out what motivates them. But there are going to be folks that unfortunately aren't going to shift, and they will be replaced by AI at some point. I talk a lot about in the actual PowerPoint, you can delegate the task to the machine, but you can never delegate the accountability. The accountability still remains with you as the human in the loop always. Inside of here, I talk a little bit our method, Mosaic, where we talk about the mapping an organization, optimizing, systemizing, and then adding AI into the organization. And then how do you keep that running? A little bit about our institute that's in here, and then the final takeaway as well. Awesome. Yeah, sorry I didn't get the last couple of minutes, but I feel like the questions were also valuable to everyone.
Most certainly. Well, thank you so much, Dan, for your presentation and for taking the time. And a big thank you to all of our attendees and for those who asked questions. Folks felt it was a great session, and we're very happy to have you. So thank you so much. We will be sending out the recording, the slide deck, and Dan, if you're willing to give an email that they can contact you with questions with, we'll include that there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really great to see and hear all of the different questions that the attendees at ISACA had for us. I know that there are a lot of you out there that have more questions that are along these lines, so I ask that you leave them in the comments below. If you want to learn more, we're launching our institute in August. The link will be in the description below.